Stormpoint, and there is one potential contest that could happen as well, but I'll wait until it does happen and see if it does happen, because I don't want to get people too excited for it. But teams I'm going to be looking out for on Stormpoint: Twisted Minds, Alliance, and SSG. All three of those teams, the majority of their success and their wins came on Stormpoint throughout the previous days here, whether that was in Last Chance, whether that was in group stages, but I'm going to be keeping a keen eye on all three of those.
Shout out to Team Liquid as well. Shout out to Neazor for doing the solo work as the Pathfinder in that previous game as well. It means they have 19 points total after that first game. DMS 15, which isn't too bad. They'll still be pretty happy with that. Alliance with 13 just behind them. Aurora with 13 as well, and Team Falcons with 13 too. But it's Mizuchi at the top of the pile here, and understandably kind of earned their POV at the start of this game. But before we show them, we've got some contests to sort out.
Yeah, this was the one I was expecting to happen between LG and GHS. But are either of these teams really going to take this POI just by the neck and just say, look, honestly, I want to dominate here and now in the first time we're on Stormpoint so that you run away from it later. And sometimes to do that, you have to be a bit aggressive.
It's interesting to see how GHS are actually playing this as well, because one of the players split off and took a loot path on some of those low ground buildings. And I think LG are just starting to sense that right now, that maybe the top structure is going to be theirs and they can force away GHS on that low ground. So you can see on your map overhead right now, GHS are out there. They're already left. And it's kind of maybe again, sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe not for Luminosity Gaming, because they have the control of the high ground, which is the majority of the loot, but on their loot path, they lose a little bit of loot as well. So it's kind of like okay, this is good because we're not having a hard contest, but we are still losing a little bit of loot.
If you're watching this map overhead and you see a single member of Falcons on a Trident on the far west side, by the way, that is a very split team at the moment, but I think it's a scouting mission to see what's going on elsewhere with Aurora. But Falcons are going to be dropping over towards Mill, of course. They do have a pretty good route into this zone, but I'm unsure. They do have a ring console as well. So both Fnatic and Falcons have ring consoles, so they can approach from that west side, and maybe we'll be contesting the likes of Luminosity a little bit later. Now, as we move over to Guild, who are a team who are a little bit further behind in those overall series scores because they came through the Last Chance. 3 points right now. Mizuchi are on 29, right? So there is a 26-point gap already. And if you are one of these teams that really wants to be a winner here at Esports World Cup, you have to put a win on the board soon to start catching.
Well, Guild Esports are center zone right now. They're going to do the spiders just to make sure they get a little loot, but it was a difficult first game for them, right? All the successes, all the highs of yesterday, taking home first place in that LCQ. Well, a little bit of reality check. It was the first fight where they lost a player. They had to go back into Cypher and get that res, and then when they got back in, Team Liquid just wiped them. There was not a knock that Liquid really suffered. And for them, it's about refocusing into this game, knowing they have good prio to this zone. One team who doesn't have great prio to this zone due to their drop over at Echo HQ is going to be Mizuchi. But the good thing is for them, they've got a Trident, they've got a ring console, and they're going to know exactly where they have to head.
Yeah, ring console will give them at least the information of where the zone's going, and they do have a survey beacon over towards the west side of Echo as well, if they want to hit that to try and plan their route. As speaking of planning routes, Falcons have started to move through from that western side and are now finding all these teams that are pretty central within this zone.
So Falcons take this building for now.
They help, to say the least.
It doesn't look like it's going to be a place that they want to hold for quite some time, I would say. GHS are just across from them. It seems like more of a transitional position for them to find themselves, although they will be safe in zone. We know that Falcons are always looking for the next opportunity to move into what they consider a better spot, but this is pretty good for them at the moment. Up to blue shields already, having left the POI, and they can just poke some damage out. They'll be pretty safe. I always get a little bit worried when you've got a double-stacked building, though, towards an endgame if a zone comes towards you, because you know someone's going to try and take one of those floors away.
I also hate those buildings as well. You're so vulnerable to grenades and even just damage from certain people from an angle that can get those shots on you. But the Watson does help getting the gen down, but sometimes even that gen is vulnerable to getting shot by someone, and then suddenly the influx of grenades happen, and just like that, you can have one player who's knocked and down, and another team decides to push. Now, LG are pushing from a similar angle from where we saw Falcons arrive from this western side, going through this choke point. They may realize that none of these buildings ahead of them are playable now, so it's whether you just say, all right, we'll stay here. This is as far as we can go, and we'll just maybe work on stopping anyone else arriving from the west.
Yeah, I don't mind this spot for now. Like you say, it's a spot that they can hold. Obviously, Funk's going to be given the responsibility of watching their back and making sure that nobody rotates through that tunnel behind them. Fnatic might be thinking about that, but it won't happen for quite some time. DMS, who might be a little bit frustrated about how that game number 1 ended, but upon reflection, maybe quite happy with the points they got on the board. Well, they were just trying to kind of move away from the shots coming in from Twisted Mind right now, who will want to improve from that game number 1. They were one of the first teams out of the lobby.
It was an interesting day 1 for Twisted Minds, where they were able to get first, second, first, but then they started to drop out in the top 15, in the top 20, and they did have a lot of dull games, dud games. If you compare that to who their competitors are, Team Falcons, a team that very rarely finished outside of the top 10. In fact, Falcons only finished outside the top 10 once throughout the group stages. And that consistency is going to be everything for getting towards match point, of course. Ooh. You don't want to fall behind.
A little bit of a blind rotate here coming in from Twisted Minds. I think they wanted to take the height there, but were just too late to do so. So they'll have to be happy with the low ground and the spider cave. Oh, no.
Shut the door!
Don't shut the door, open the door, let your teammate in and then shut the door. And Sweet might be a little bit frustrated at that, but Falcons, they're not going to let this settle. They want these kills. They're overextending for them. They want LG blood.
Falcons do not allow teams to get away easily, but they also recognize they need to keep their spot on the map. If you step away for too long, someone else could pinch it away from you. And it has allowed LG to get that second attempt at a res. And even though it looked like a very brave push from Falcons, it was a very mature response at the initial damage to say, actually, it is not worth it here.
Well, now the frustration and the difficulty for LG is Sweet got finished, right? The door was closed, and even though it might have been a self-preservation job coming in from Funk initially, by losing Sweet, they have to decide now, do we try and get a res? Because they're going to be able to get that banner. It's only just outside of the door. But the problem is they're now trapped in the tunnel, right? If they go back towards the west side, we mentioned Fnatic, they're in and around checkpoint. And they're going to have to give up the tunnel, potentially, and then have to fight their way back through it. So little moments like that have this knock-on effect, this domino effect, for how they're going to approach the rest of this game. Elsewhere, SSG are on the chase. Blacklist International are finding themselves at Cliffside at the moment, and with only 1 player alive.
Well, for SSG, it was a very slow start in this tournament, but they dropped into that last chance, but boy, was it an explosive last chance qualifier for them. A victory in the last game to send them into this grand finals lobby.
By the way, I've misspoken there, because this is a really interesting fight. SSG have essentially isolated 1 member of Blacklist International, and Koifor is going to get a knock elsewhere. The rest of Blacklist International are only just coming into the zone right now, so it's become a 3v2, and it's an opportunity that they wanted to take it they have by getting that first knock, as we head into a little bit of a technical pause. We'll have to see how this fight does, of course, continue here as the Falcons fans are getting a little bit loud inside of the building.
A technical pause, and I will not speak too much of the ring and where it's going because of that pause, just in case a coach or player
Ultimate bad cop
has a little bit of a left speaker off of their ear to see what is being said. But what we did learn, and one of the things I want to go back on, is Luminosity Gaming. When we first checked in with them, they were within that choke point, within that kind of doorway, and then when we came back, they were running back towards it. They tried to make their rotation away from it and to keep going further east, but sadly they walked into a Team Falcons who are kind of desperate to fight. When you look at the roster of Falcons, I feel like they are so confident in any engagement they're going to be having here. As soon as someone gives them an inch, they're going to take a mile.
Yeah, it's almost like if you show as 1 player, you know there's 2 guns trained on you. There's, I mean, 3 of the best shooters in the game, right? It doesn't matter what combination of them you want to pick. It's very, very rare that you're going to be able to get away with a little overextension, a little mistake, a misplaced smoke, whatever it might be. And then they tried, one thing I love about Falcons, though, they left the build and tried to clean it up almost immediately, knowing that they had this time window. And I think it's one thing that separates the best teams of the world in Apex, right? It's understanding your timing window, that they were able to push onto those final players with their numbers, but also not give their spot up. So having seen that they're not going to get those kills, they decided just to retreat and hold their spot. Elsewhere, GG will be eliminated as we are back into the game now, as the pause is undone. And we're back live.
EXL also got eliminated, by the way. They were just waiting in that pause, I think, for 1 player to get eliminated. It was probably a horrible wait for them, to be honest. But we check in elsewhere. ExoClan, pretty central at the moment, but I think they are going to continue to have to move further east, because that is where the zone is going. We're going back over towards Cascade Falls now, as Alliance land on top of a building, and we'll be able to find a home here.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like, where we saw a lot of the teams earlier on was slightly to the north of where we find ourselves now, the sort of northwest position, maybe expecting a pull that way. The likes of Luminosity Gaming, the likes of Falcons, but now, because of that, the later arrivals who may have had that ring console information are finding space inside of Cascade Falls. So you got Fnatic here inside of Cascade. They're also in a really good building for potentially holding out some of those rotators in from the previously discussed location here, and they can get some damage and some KP. But for Alliance, that's great news for them. To fly in, find a building that's free inside a Cascade, you'll take that all day.
There's going to be a lot of teams on this west side, so it's going to be pretty difficult if you are not within one of these buildings on the western side. An area that is interesting is the eastern side. FaZe Clan hold this place right now, but Blacklist International and Space Station will be approaching. Now we look over towards LG. They've been back up to a full 3, so they've been able to rescue Sweet, and it looks like they're going to be able to have a second stab at trying to make this rotation.
Round 2. See how this one goes. And it looks like they're going to know this time with how late they're arriving now to this party and how many teams potentially could have overtaken them with the time that expired from them having to go and get Sweet back in the game, that they might think about playing this one a little bit differently. Elsewhere though, FaZe Clan, they're on the other side of the zone at the moment. This is kind of away from all the traffic. They're chilling.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. FaZe Clan, the only team on the east in zone, but elsewhere, Blacklist International are still being hunted by SSG, and this is also on the east side. So I think if FaZe Clan are able to get eyes on this, they might be able to get some KP, but it looks like Blacklist International are full-on retreating away from this one, and Space Station are probably going to have to give up on it now they've approached zone.
Yeah, getting a little bit desperate for SSG at this point. JMW, it must have been a difficult pause for him. He just sat there and his two teammates looking at Xhaka and Yaka go, don't think we're going to be able to get him back in, do you? And they go, sorry, buddy, we're just going to head to zone when this pause is done. He's probably like, yeah, all right, fair enough. But yeah, SSG were desperately trying to chase that down. They're also going to be able to hit the survey beacon in a second as well to get the information on where the teams are located. And a survey beacon at this point of the game for SSG, you can see that there is buildings still in Cascade Falls open. They will see that so much of the traffic is over to that east side. But the question is, do they have the ring console as well to give them the info of where the zone is pulling, or are they going to be fooled by where all the teams are stacked up?
Well, the good news is they can hit the survey beacon and then they will get natural information from this ring now. So they will know at least it's pulling towards Cascade Falls, and they'll be able to see that actually on this eastern side, they're one of few teams here, and they'll be thinking there is a real opportunity at good placement points. But we know it is going to continue to go a little bit more central towards Cascade, and there is only a couple of buildings to work with now. In the first match, we saw Mizuchi get a win, and we can check in with them here, their rotation and where they want to go. Let's jump into a listening with Mizuchi.
Yeah, I think so too. Like, we can go to, like, there's like this big rock over here that we can go to stop by.
Move your butts.
I just don't know if they're gonna fight, bro. Actually, don't know if they're gonna fight. They're gonna look to like kill us more than anyone else.
There's a team has to be here. There's no way there isn't. So they're definitely gonna fight. This entire zone was contested. There's got to be a team on their side.
I feel like they should be too.
And if anything, like, I mean, they might be like holding for a team that's like trying to wrap this.
That way,
So,
fellas. Move your butts.
I'm gonna
just hit this.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna
boosting.
let you show.
You think I'm good to come over to you?
No, I think just the whole day is. Like, the worst thing would be giving it up too early.
I think you're almost good though, build at like 10 seconds.
I don't think we play up there. Well, I feel like if we play this big tree, I feel like we're gonna fucking die.
Wait.
Like where the zipline is, I feel like we should go right.
Well, just discussions in the comms of Mizuchi about what is going to be next for them, and you can see they're going to have to cross across quite a treacherous path here. Across. That did actually make sense though, which is, trust me, surprising when it comes out of my mouth. But they do have to cross across. Said it again. These waterfalls areas, which can lead them to be very, very vulnerable. Some tough decisions for them to make, and the same can be said about Falcons now. They're going to have to go in towards this zone. You can see Bangalore ults going off as well. You can also see Mizuchi having to make that cross, and Waltzy, he just got nuked, but not quite enough to get the knock. GHS Professional will be eliminated in the meantime. Timmy's got to be careful as well.
Has to be very careful. Exhibit's gone down though, so there's going to be a lot of information gained here for Aurora, or against Aurora, should I say, but they've lost one as well.
Yeah, it's actually going to be them who get the first knock. So Timmy gone down, and then it'll be exchanged. But there's the lifeline difference, and there is another Skynade coming in that's going to do a huge amount of damage. Kazak with that onto Waltzy to get the finish.
Mizuchi eliminated then from first place to 17th, and that's how this lobby can go back and forth. Blacklist International also get taken down, as now Falcons are trying to push in on this one, and you can see Howl leading the charge, but he's very aware of where the teammates are, and it's almost like a game of cat and mouse at the moment, trying to lead a player in so you can take him out.
Yeah, this is, you can see Falcons at the moment and the team on the other side of this fight, they know how important it is to not be the first to get knocked here. Everyone is having a little shoulder peek. Everybody is trying to see if they can get that first bit of damage. You can see that LGD Gaming, well, they're down to just 2 at the moment, but the Kraber might be the worry.
It's 2.5 with the Kraber. Also, LG are very close here, and LGD, I think, just learned that. They thought it was just Falcons, but no. LG, blue armors, looking to try and make up for the death earlier.
Sykes gets absolutely decimated, though, and Zero will be the player who gets that knock. Zero still with some good shields. Jim Burns got to be careful of the window angle as LG try and keep the pressure on, but you can see this is not an easy fight for either team at the moment. Dragons Esports are here as well, as we see a little bit of a spray coming in. LGD will go down. Gilbert now left on his own. Can he clutch up here for Falcons? No, they can't. Falcons will fall as DRG come in to clean up.
It was just team after team after team, but it's Dragons Esports who are the last to arrive and pick up all the pieces and will now have that northwest side. Guild, by the way, keeping an eye on this southwest side. It's Twisted Minds who are below them.
South America standing up again here, not just making finals, not content with that, but they want more here in Riyadh. Now, Twisted Minds inside of the zone right now, taking a little bit of chip damage from it, but will be able to reset. They're going to be behind Dragon Esports now, and if they're not aware, and they're celebrating a little bit too much, then they might get caught off guard. But Player K has gone down, so they've lost their Watson on this rotate. Can they get him back on his feet?
Well, as Twisted Minds approach, Dragons Esports decided to take the evac tower, but they've taken the evac tower into the danger area. It's Guild Esports who are still here, and now just from heroes to zeros potentially here, because you could take too much damage, and you are going to. Zilak's gone down.
Well, you saw the grapple tornado coming in. Even that wasn't good enough to keep them alive here. Down to just one, and Panic needs to not live up to his name at this point. Medkit going to be popped. Zone is closing behind, but it is going to be the end of Dragons Esports, as Guild will hold firm. 11 squads now remaining. Their next point of contention is going to be Aurora, still on this southern side.
11 squads remain, make it 10 now. Team Liquid just got eliminated. DMS are holding one of the center buildings. By the way, there are about 6 teams all in this building. You can see it on the mini-map there, but look where that zone is shifting. It's going south. It's going away from all of these teams, except the likes of Aurora and FaZe Clan, who hold arguably some of the best positions right now.
This should be a guaranteed top 5 or so for both of those teams if they play it rightly. If they don't overextend, they just have to survive. They have the zone, and everybody who is inside of Cascade will have to leave. This is the carnage of Cascade. UKF going to get a kill onto Swinny, who is on that roof, as Fnatic now make their move, but making their way through here is so tough, but there's a zipline to help.
This is a zipline to just try and assert some dominance on the roof as SSG get eliminated. Fnatic still a full 3. That's what's important here, and they've been able to reset. It looks like the bat will go off, so Fnatic still with a big chance to get kills here.
And it's a wonderful thing to know that if you're working your way through multiple teams, that you've got a player on your team who's got a devotion in his hand. That can make such quick work of so many players. DMS, they're inside of that building as well. Leica with the devotion, a lot of responsibility on his hands right now as he takes down the evac tower as well. Fnatic on the height and looking for kills.
There is genuinely 6 teams in these 2 buildings that all have to move at the same time. It's FaZe, Aurora, and Guild who are the only 3 who are not within this current building set. This is going to be carnage as everyone leaves. This is where you need to either get out early or be the last to escape, or just say, look, we're not going to win this game. We need kills.
Elevate Bleed on the low ground. They have the evac down. They were trying to use it for the smoke combo, but you have to wonder if maybe that's going to change and they think about using it as an escape route. Very, very tough to do, as Fnatic probably thinking about something very similar. You saw them trying to think about placing down that evac tower to get ahead of the traffic, but instead UKF, he's going to turn his attention to players on the outside. Great shots, takes them down a flash. As Aurora now, from their southern position on this zone, watch all of this happen in front of them.
Aurora are focusing on Guild, by the way. This is huge for them as Guild get eliminated. That was one of the teams not in the buildings. This is opening up for another fantastic game here, and it could be Aurora getting the W if they play this right, but now everyone's leaving the buildings at the same time.
Yuka trying to use that mouse and keyboard movement to stay alive and let Satsuki come in and clean up the damage. Twisted Minds will be eliminated in the meantime as Leica is left on his own. Fnatic will be eliminated as now we find ourselves with 6 teams. Make that 5 as ExoClan will fall as well.
There's that top 5 we were talking about for Aurora, and they get the chance to reset as we see FaZe and Alliance eliminated. Remember, FaZe were on that east side. This opens things up for Aurora on the south. They've got full red, and it is just an Elevate Bleed squad they really need to be worried about. But DMS, we said how everyone was going to have to escape the building. They have found a tiny nook or cranny within that building to work with.
Yeah, that's a creepy looking corner, but for DMS, the question is, can you get out inside of the zone? And it looks like Elevate Bleed are actually moving up onto them to try and take them out before they even have the opportunity. Aurora step up to the plate as well. It looks like the decision has been made from Elevate Bleed. The second place is what they want to play for as Aurora look to put their first win on the board. DMS, they're gone as well. 9 hit pops with the final shots. And Aurora will be your champions.
Rain with a little shake, a little wiggle to celebrate. And you've got to be careful. Depending on how high you up on that stage, you don't want to be picking people up too much. But wow, what a game from Aurora. As soon as they were able to find that southern side and see the zone